Well, good afternoon and welcome to What Moves Her, brought to you by Coldwell Banker Advantage. What Moves Her is our localized program that unapologetically shines the light on women's leadership and helps you reach your goals. I am Heather Gool, one of the moderators. I am the broker in charge of our Cary office and the regional vice president of our Southern Wake offices. I am super excited today about our conversation. We'll be talking about mindfulness. And sometimes when we bring a topic, we need an expert. So today we have Marli Kol, who is a senior instructor at Anywhere Brands. But before we introduce Marli, I want to just share what mindfulness is, and then we're going to let Marli kind of share some more. Mindfulness is a practice that involves paying attention in the real and present moment. Mindfulness can help individuals cultivate a greater sense of self-awareness, self-acceptance, and compassion, which can also lead to an overall sense of well-being. The benefits of mindfulness are numerous and can have a positive impact on both your physical and your mental health. So without further ado, I want to introduce our special guest, Marli Kol with Anywhere Brands. Marli, say hello to everyone.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, Heather. I'm very excited to be here today.
Yes, I am too. So first, before I get it started and ask a question, I do want to remind everyone we are on Zoom. You can put your questions in the chat. We do have Elsa monitoring it. So please, anything you have, just go ahead and enter it in the chat. So Marli, tell us a little bit about your role at Anywhere Brands and also kind of your career trajectory.
Sure. So, as you introduced me, which I'm so grateful for, thank you. I'm currently a senior instructor at Anywhere, and I work with the Expansion Brands division, which includes Better Homes and Gardens real estate as well as ERA real estate. So, we actually service both brands fully, and we help them develop curriculum along with the ID team, as well as anything that we can do to help them grow and streamline their business from a learning angle.
It's awesome. Awesome. So
I love it.
Yes. So when you think about mindfulness, right, how do you become an active practitioner for mindfulness?
That's such a great question. And I think for me, it's something that has developed over time. And my inspiration initially began when I was working as a real estate agent in the field myself. And I also would go from a very challenging situation or a discerning client, and I'd really have to shift gears into another situation where I would have to come in with a completely different energy and start fresh. And I realized that the best way to do that for myself was something that I started picking up through my yoga classes, but you don't have to do yoga to do, which is just taking a few minutes in my car or if you're walking, then just to breathe and to find even a meditation for yourself that works for you. So some people prefer just to have a few minutes of silence and just breathe. And for me, I use an app that I love that was called Insight Timer. And I would just listen to a 1 minute, 3 minute meditation, anything to recalibrate me and just recenter me so that I could bring a positive energy into my next client meeting. And that way, whatever had happened in the past had happened. And now I could start fresh with this new person.
Yes, that's awesome. I'm not a yoga practitioner, but I always learn and listen to some of my friends, and some of them are into goat yoga, and I use that a lot when I'm talking to people. I'm like, if you need a moment, go do yoga, and if you like goats, bring it in.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot
Yes,
of fun.
yes.
I just
So
read today about a new yoga called floatga, where you float on the
float,
water and do yoga.
I would
hmm
end up in the water. Yes. So tell me, how long have you been practicing mindfulness?
As I was thinking about that question, I really go back in time because I grew up as a competitive dancer and gymnast. And as you gave this amazing definition at the beginning of today about mindfulness and the impact, it really made me think that when I grew up as a dancer and a gymnast, I didn't know that it was mindfulness at the time, but it was something that I've always been doing. So we used to visualize our performance or our routine before we would actually do it. And that's a form of mindfulness. Just like as a real estate agent, you might visualize yourself giving a listing presentation or even introducing yourself to a new buyer when you're showing them around a property or doing a buyer consultation. It's that way of really visualizing the success that you want to have for yourself and then bringing yourself into that space. And so I was able to take that into the real estate world when last year, before our ERA conference, which is called Fuel, we had one of our top brokers out of Montana request that we do a topic at the conference on mindfulness and health and stress for real estate agents. And we brought in an outside expert, and I was so enthralled by the session that it inspired me to get my health coach certification. And thanks to the support of Anywhere, I was able to get my health coach certification this past year. And now I've been bringing in mindfulness and stress reducing strategies into our world, in our real estate agents world as well. And also speaking to brokers about how they can work with their agents to help give them strategies to bring them from the red zone to the yellow zone.
Yes, that never happens in real estate, right?
No, no stress at all in real estate.
Yeah. So tell me this, what would be in your definition, really, I think we talk a lot about mindset, right? What would be your kind of definition for the difference really between mindset and mindfulness?
Ooh, great question. So I think that mindfulness, the way that you said it before, is really being aware of how you're feeling and really taking a second to step back before you're doing something and also to reevaluate a situation because sometimes we spring into action very quickly. And I myself have had to learn to slow down. And I think that that's what mindfulness has really taught me. And then mindset is really bringing a positive aspect to things, which doesn't mean that everything is sunshine and rainbows and butterflies all the time, but realizing that the mindset that we bring into a situation can really have an impact on it. So, for example, if you are speaking to somebody and you're smiling, whether it's in person or whether it's over the phone, that people can feel that coming through. And so that's the mindset that you're bringing. And if I know that I just came from a very difficult situation and I bring that mindset from that situation into my next appointment, then it's going to taint that experience as well. And I'm really just hurting myself and my future opportunities. And so, mindset is something that we do a lot of work on with our coaching program because it really helps agents not just get into the right mindset, but also overcome any fears because real estate can be very scary. It's a field where you are constantly getting rejected, and you really have to learn how to be resilient and how to pick yourself back up with a bigger smile than you had on before, and know that, every no is getting you to a yes, and that even if you get, kicked off the horse and you get back on, that you can win the competition. So it's really about putting yourself into the mindset that will set you up for that success.
Yes, and I love what you said when you first started responding to that question is that I think a lot of times agents get really just in the moment. They are, in the transaction, which is great. But sometimes I always tell my agents, you need to take a time out. Right? Because if you're emotionally charged, if you are in a negative situation, if you're trying to negotiate, they want an answer, they want it now. And sometimes you just need to either take a timeout for yourself, or sometimes I say put the other realtor in a timeout, right? So that you can well, knowing probably how you are, individually, we all, know how we're going to react. We can bring, and calm ourselves down and, really think through the responses instead of just answering off the cuff, which sometimes does not work.
Yeah, you're
Right?
exactly right. And, that's something that I think in our world today where everything is immediate and we do want to be responsive, that sometimes it is important to take a breath or a pause and give ourselves the space and the permission to think about what we want to say before we send it and take into account whether it's better to send something immediately when, as you said, we're charged up, or if it's better just to delay it a little bit and come back with a better response.
Great. So, can you share with us some of your regular mindful practices and what that looks like? So, if someone is thinking about, oh, this interests me, what are some things they can do on a regular basis?
Definitely. And, I'm a huge fan of reading, podcasts, everything. And there's something that I really took out of my health coach certification overall. And this, I think, can apply to everyone. And it's called primary food versus secondary food. And primary food is everything that goes into your life that isn't on your plate, which means your personal relationships, your financial stability, your everything that you're exposing yourself to, whether it's something you're watching, you're listening, your social media interactions, your friendships, your any other partnerships that you have in your life. And so when I think about mindfulness, I think about my primary food. And so this can apply to everyone. And think about your primary food and the way that you're setting yourself up to experience it in the most positive way. And so for me, my practice has evolved over time and it shifts depending on where I am in my life or in the world because I travel a lot also. But there's a few things that I did want to share with you today that I do include in my life every day. So the first is I do try to do some sort of regular daily meditation. And for me, it's anywhere between 1 to 10 minutes. And it depends on the day, it depends how much time I have. As I mentioned before, I really like using the Insight Timer app because I can choose the length and I can choose if I want a male voice, a female voice, if I want music in the background or silence. And you might even just want a minute of quiet to yourself. That for someone else might look like writing in a gratitude journal. So, whatever that practice is for you to check in with yourself, I try to do that every morning. Maybe you do that while you brush your teeth. Maybe you just think quietly to yourself as you're brushing your teeth. James Clear, who wrote the book Atomic Habits, would call that habit stacking, where you have one habit that you're already doing, like brushing your teeth, and then you add another habit to that. So anything that you can really use to check in with yourself is going to help set your day up for progress. And then if you've ever read the book, Eat the Frog, so they say that you want to eat the frog first, meaning you want to do the hardest thing first. Why? Because if you don't do that, then you're likely going to procrastinate and put it off till the end of the day. So I try to address that in my morning meditation and say, okay, what is the most important item on my to do list for today? And then, as I mentioned, depending on the day, maybe I'll listen to a podcast, maybe I'll listen to like a clip from an Audible book, whatever it is that I'm listening to in the morning. Or even I have a friend in Miami who is a DJ who made a playlist that she's constantly changing called Romanticize Your Morning. That's like a very calming, soothing morning playlist. So, depending on my mood, I'll either listen to that calming morning playlist or a podcast that's motivational, educational. But again, it's that primary food, right? I'm feeding my brain, my
Right.
soul, my body, something that's really good for me. And then it gives me ideas and inspiration for the rest of the day. And then the last thing that I would say, and again, all of these can really be done by anyone, is that every day, and I wish I knew, I still can't remember where I picked this up, but every day I have an alarm set on my phone that goes off at 3:45. And if you have an iPhone, you can customize the label on the alarm. And mine has one of my mantras, which says, everything is happening as it should be. And people ask why 3:45, and I feel like by 3:45, if I've been having a not so great day, then I think, okay, you know what? It's only 3:45. I have the rest of the day to turn this around and make it a great day. And if I've been having a great day and then my alarm goes off at 3:45, I think, "Oh, this is amazing. I've been having an incredible day. Now it's going to continue to be even more amazing." And so for me, those three things really just help me recalibrate myself and check in throughout the day in very, very small ways. And there's more that I add in, again, depending on my day, my time. Perhaps there's exercise. Perhaps I add electrolytes in my water in the morning if I'm, remembering. But for me, I think those three things are something that anybody could pick up and slowly add into their life for those tiny little check-ins for yourself to really help you make sure that you're focusing your day, yourself, and that you're filling your cup first.
I think that's awesome. And two of those books I actually recommend to agents as well, Atomic Habits and Eat the Frog. Right. And I
Yeah.
love the Eat the Frog because we talk about things, especially when new agents come on board and we talk about things that they should be doing and they're nervous. We're like, do it, get it over with, because then you're not stressing for the rest of the day and building up this tension, right? It's done. Yes, it may go well, it may not, but you'll pick up something, you'll learn. And then, the next time you do it, you'll be, more of an expert. Yeah.
That's
So that's
exactly right.
awesome. I love to hear someone else say Eat the Frog. Yes.
Yeah, I love
Um,
that book.
Yeah, so you talked a little bit, I've got a list here that I want to ask you about, 2 to 3 techniques, right? That are a little bit different. I love the primary food, I love the secondary food, but let's say you have that 10 minutes in the morning, right? And you might be brushing your teeth and you haven't figured out how to really multitask, right? What's 1 or 2 techniques they could do to really start getting themselves in that habit of taking that time in the morning?
Great question. So I think first it's really just to start small. And I think that that's the key because as you mentioned with Eat the Frog, if you don't do it, then it starts to become this overwhelming cloud that's hanging over your head. And so what we learn is that procrastination isn't because people are lazy, but in fact, it's because people are overwhelmed or they're scared or stressed. And so if you want to try to include mindfulness into your life, then I would start with something very small. So whether that's doing a little bit of exercise, whether that's going for a walk, whether that's doing 10 push-ups, whatever it is that gets your body moving, if you want to do that, I'll give you a personal example. So last year, I found out that I have plantar fasciitis in my feet. If you don't know what it is, it's just a very painful, very painful situation. And there's really no cure for it. And the only way to make it better is by stretching your Achilles heel or Achilles tendon. And so what I found is that by brushing my teeth, that I would also be able to habit stack and stretch my Achilles. So when I brush my bottom teeth, I put my left foot back. And then when I brush my top teeth, I put my right foot back. And for me, that's the only way that I can really remember to stretch my Achilles. Otherwise, I'll be in pain when I'm walking throughout the day. So try to find something that you can add onto something you're already doing that's very small. Maybe that's brushing your teeth and then writing 3 things that you're grateful for that day, whether it's in the morning or in the evening, because you're brushing your teeth both times. So anything like that, or maybe it's just a conversation with someone in the morning that you check in with someone that you live with, or you want to call someone on your way to work. My sister usually calls me on her way to work and we kind of check in for the day. And then the last thing that I would say is this is, I would think it sounds a little bit more advanced, but it's actually very intuitive. And that's a couple breathing techniques. So, Heather, is it okay if I share a couple breathing techniques?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So the first one is called paced breathing. And paced breathing is a great way to, again, take yourself from that red zone to yellow zone by really calming your nervous system down. And you can do that by cupping your hands together and then putting it over your nose and mouth. And you slowly breathe in through your nose and then out through your mouth. And by feeling your breath in your hands, you'll actually be able to calm yourself down, and you'll see it only takes a few cycles of breath before you start to feel calm. So that's one of them. That's very easy to do. And this is also something you could do in the morning before you sit down at your desk to start working or get in the car to start your day or whatever it is that you're doing. Maybe you sit up in bed and you're already feeling stressed. So you can do this anywhere, anytime, only takes a few seconds. And then the second one is called boxed breathing. So, box breathing took me a very long time to master because I kind of have asthma. So, it's a little hard for me, but I like the challenge. And so, box breathing can be done in any number, but really you want to try to shoot for the number 4. So, you breathe in 1, 2, 3, 4, hold it 1, 2, 3, 4, breathe out 1, 2, 3, 4, hold it 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, when you try and do that a few times, you'll find that the part where you're pausing and holding your breath in between the inhale and the exhale is what's going to calm you down. So maybe when you start, you just want to start with threes. That's what I started with. And now I've advanced to the fours, but it took me a long time to get there. So you can always start with a three. You can move to a five if you're super advanced or have amazing lung capacity. And then the last one is my absolute favorite one. I just saw somebody post about it again online today about how helpful that it is. And it's called the physiological sigh. And you breathe in through your nose as much as you can, like, and then you take one more inhale when you think you can't inhale anymore, like a little sniff, and then you let it all out. And just that extra little sniff in at the end helps give you that sigh of relief. And if you just practice that again a few times, that is something super simple. Nobody knows that you're doing a, breathing technique to calm yourself down. You could step into the bathroom for a second, step outside, and it really just helps calm you down completely.
Those are
So
awesome.
those are just a few of them.
Yes. I always tell people to do the Wonder Woman pose, right? If you're really nervous and you're going into a
Yes.
listing appointment or a first time buyer, just stand there, feet apart, hands on your hip and do the Wonder Woman pose just to kind of ground yourself, right?
Such a
Yes.
great power pose. I love that one.
Yes. Um, so, I had a question and it totally just slipped my mind, but it'll come back to me, right? Tell me this: why is it important for women in business to really prioritize self care?
Great question. And, I think that women in business have been evolving over time. And lately, women have really been soaring. And because of that amazing opportunity, it's really easy for us to fall into the trap of wanting to be everything to everyone all the time. And it's important for us also to focus on self care because, as you said before, we have to fill our own cup first. And there's another great person that I follow online who always says that it's not selfish to do that because what you're actually doing is setting an example. And I think about it even in my family. Like my mom was always a very active person. And because I grew up seeing her being very active, I too, as an adult now, am also very active. And so by doing that, we're not just taking care of ourselves, but we're really taking care of our business as well. So we're setting that as a model for ourselves, just like Sue Yannicone also talks about how she runs. And I think to myself that that is an amazing model for women that are in our company and outside of our company too. But to see that somebody that's in such a high powered position really takes pride and focuses on her physical well being because she knows that will help with her mental clarity really sets the example for us and how that directly impacts our success.
Yes. And it's important we always share that you should time block for yourself as well, because I think, in this industry as a real estate agent, people will take control of your time if you allow them to do it. And so we really, we've rolled out the 12-week year. We've really pushed that you have to put in that, um, buffer time just for you, right? Just for you to say, I need to go take that 10 minutes. I need to take, that 30 minutes just for myself. Because otherwise, we will say that that's not a priority and we'll push it down, right?
Completely. And Mel Robbins always talks about that and says, if you canceled on your friends the way that you canceled on yourself, then you probably wouldn't want to be friends with you, right? So if you
Right.
time block that, okay, I'm going to go do that exercise class or I'm going to go, whatever it is that you want to do that makes you happy and brings you fulfillment and joy, and then you cancel on it for yourself, then you're just hurting yourself. And she
Right.
also talks about, if you're a fan of Mel Robbins, she talks about the 5 second rule, where she counts down and she says this is scientifically proven that when you count down from five, you can't help but do the thing, whatever the thing is. If that's getting out of bed to go exercise, if that's, whatever it is that you're doing in your life to bring wellness or mindfulness. But if you count down five, four, three, two, one, you're like, okay, I have to do it now. So
Yes.
bringing that in and really keeping that commitment to yourself is really what's the most important too.
So I remembered my question because you jogged it. But, we
Oh,
talk
good.
about mindfulness being present in the moment, right? What would you say to someone who, is coming off that, tough conversation or coming out of a tough transaction and somebody's trying to catch their attention and they're not active listening, right?
Mm.
So if I'm having a conversation with you, I'm off in la la land. How would you, recommend someone really get back into that mood so that they can actively listen and be present in that conversation and give them, give their full commitment to whoever is on the other side of that?
That's such a great question. And actually, last week I was in Utah and we led a top agent panel. And I asked the top agents because I wanted them to answer something similar for the agents that were in the office that were newer. Said, how do you deal with transitioning yourself? Because two of the top producers had just had a terrible day right before the panel. One of them said, oh, I just ruined someone's day and I made her cry. And then the other one had just hired a new assistant and the assistant quit before she even started. So they were both dealing with these challenges. And so I said, in real time, like, how are you focusing right now on this panel after these two things just happened to you? And they said, you know what? You just take a breath and you keep going. And it really is that simple. You just take that pause that you mentioned before and you realize, you know what? This is a new situation, new people, new opportunity. And I'm going to really dive in because even though that may not have worked out the way I wanted it to, here's my opportunity to reconcile that and to move forward in a positive way for another opportunity. So that's it.
Yes.
It's really, I know it might sound simple or it might sound not feasible, but just taking a breath and a pause and refocusing and recalibrating yourself.
Right. And I think do you find that sometimes the technology that is so available at our fingertips is a distraction and can be a distraction?
It definitely can be a distraction. I know even for myself today, I just now I put my phone on airplane mode and I put it in the other room. That way I'm not distracted at all and I'm fully present here with you today and with everyone that's here participating as well. But I also, just as a habit for myself, have my phone set on do not disturb. So every day my phone goes on do not disturb starting at 11 p.m. until 8 a.m. And I can still receive messages or phone calls for those who aren't familiar with do not disturb, but only from people that are on my favorites list. So if there was an emergency and someone was calling me and they're on my favorites list, then yes, the call would go through. But I am aware that we live in a 24/7 world these days, and I want to be able to have my phone as needed, but also not have it something that disrupts my life or especially my sleep, because that is something that is non-negotiable for me.
Right. I was teaching a class yesterday in our triad region, and I said to a couple of the agents, I said, sometimes you just have to put your phone down. I was involved in a class where they actually took the phone out of the room, and the stress level was so high. But now I'm to the point I'm like, take it, please take it.
Yeah.
Because you do need that time for yourself, really, to just, you need that downtime to really just re energize yourself. I think it's so
It's
important.
true.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. And I had actually done a few years ago, I did a trip to, it's an all-inclusive spa resort that's called Miraval. And at Miraval, they have a little bed. It looks like a little wooden bed that's for your phone in the room. And they encourage you during your stay there to leave your phone in the bed. And there's even a little, what looks kind of like a sleeping bag. So you can put your phone in the little sleeping bag and then put it on the bed and leave your phone in the room while you're there. And it's really encouraging to step away. And just those few days that I was there, it felt really liberating to have that digital detox for myself. So I think if there's
Yes.
a way you could do that, even if it's, one day on the weekend for yourself or even a few hours, then try to take that time. It'll help reset you.
Yes. So as people start to move toward, implementing mindfulness into their lives, what changes or what are some things that they can expect to see happen once they start, implementing this?
I think that when you start to become more aware of your own mindfulness, then you start to realize how rushed everybody else is and how you are able to really take a step back and assess a situation more fully. And one of my most favorite expressions that I picked up from a friend of mine who was a Marine, he did two tours. and he works as a firefighter now, is he says that firefighters say, don't make your emergency my emergency, which means a firefighter isn't going to get to a fire and immediately run into the burning building. And instead, what they do is they get to the burning building and then they assess the situation before they make a plan of action. And I think that that's the best way that you can really understand mindfulness, is that you're not just immediately running into the burning building, but you're taking the time to assess it first and then really decide what's going to be the safest and most effective way for me to handle this.
Awesome. I love that. Let me ask this. When you are moving toward an effort to be more mindful, what are your thoughts about having an accountability partner or partners?
I love accountability partners. Having grown up in the dance, gymnastics, cheerleading world, I grew up having a coach and partners, whether they were in the dance with me, on my team, in my company. And so I've always felt the need to have some sort of accountability. And I think that going through anything that's a change or adding anything new into your life, it's always so much better to have somebody there with you, not just to help hold you accountable, but also help to be there with you to celebrate your success in holding yourself accountable. And I think that's the fun part, is really getting to celebrate when you've achieved your goals. So for example, I guess a year or so ago, I told my best friend who lives in Toronto that I wanted to get my yoga teacher certification, but I didn't think I could do it on my own and be working full time. And so her and I actually did it together virtually. And that was an amazing way for us both to be accountability partners for each other and also to celebrate the win. And so anything that you can do to really combine those two is what's going to make you the most successful. So find whatever rewards that you have for yourself and build that into your accountability too.
That's awesome. Yes. So I know you gave us a couple of books that you mentioned, Atomic Habits, Eat the Frog. Are there any other books that you may, or podcast, that you haven't already mentioned that you may recommend to the guest today?
Sure. So the first podcast that I ever discovered, which I think is still relevant and probably still my favorite podcast to this day, is NPR. It's called How I Built This by Guy Raz, R-A-Z, or Z for the Canadians. And it's all about interviews with Guy Raz and different entrepreneurs and how they create those brands and what they've done to set themselves apart for success. So I think as realtors who act as entrepreneurs running their own business, that it's really inspiring to hear the stories. And it's everything from Spanx to the RX bars to any product, restaurant, anything that you would recognize. He interviews those entrepreneurs that are the leaders of these products. So definitely check that out. NPR, Guy Raz, How I Built This. And I'm also a big fan, most recently, of Jenna Kutcher. She actually started as a photographer and then was able to transition her career into more of a marketing specialist. So she's a fantastic person to follow. She also has recently gotten into the health and wellness space herself. So I would definitely check her out online. And then
how do you spell her last name?
It's Kutcher, Kutcher.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. And
okay, so
there are so many, there are so many, podcasts that are available now that you can listen to. There's also one called Mindset Mentor. That one's a really great one. And then I find that anything that's more like an Oprah show can also be really helpful, because you're hearing from people that have gone through challenging situations and the way that they've overcome them. And I think for realtors or people working in the real estate space, that the skills that I pick up from other industries are relevant to this industry as well, like resilience, persistence, creativity, thinking outside of the box, finding ways to visualize my future and set myself up for success. And so if I can really connect with those stories and find ways that it will build on my life and my career, then that's what I'm taking out of it. And then the last thing I'd say, and this is more general, is to check out TED Talks. because with TED Talks, you can filter them based on the topic and based on the duration of the video. So you can say, I want to learn more about motivation. Where does motivation come from? Maybe you're feeling stuck at the moment. And so you can say, I want a motivational video that's 5 to 10 minutes long, and you can watch that or listen to it in the car. So anything TED Talk, I'm a huge fan of.
That's awesome. We have one question in the chat. What's, in your opinion, the difference between Insight Timer and Calm, the Calm app?
Ooh, I think that they're both great. They both have different options and different people that speak on there. I happen to have found someone on Insight Timer whose voice I personally find very soothing. And so for me, I kind of follow him because he's always coming out with new meditations. So I personally just gravitate towards that one. And I also just like the different options that they have because I feel like they're constantly changing and evolving the product, and they just always have new resources available. So, for example, you asked about accountability before, right? So they
Right.
do all sorts of challenges too, like a 30-day sleep challenge or a 30-day gratitude challenge. And I like that you can really be part of something bigger. And it's with people that you don't necessarily know, kind of like Peloton, right? Like you're part of a community, but you're still working on something for yourself at the same time. So you really have that type of support with you.
That's awesome.
But yeah, Calm is also a great option too.
Yes. So, some,
They want to know more about the science.
okay, someone sent us a question about the science behind mindfulness.
So there's actually, as part of my health coach certification, and I'm going to draw a blank on her name right now, and I'm going to feel awful, but there was a doctor that talked all about, how did she frame it? Meditation as medicine. I think that was how she framed it. And I know that her name is Dr. Jamie, and I'm drawing a blank on her last name right now, but I think it was Friedman. And basically, what they've done studies and they've shown that if you do, in fact, do meditation between 7 to 8 minutes a day, it actually changes the chemistry of your brain and it starts to rewire you in a positive way. And I'll explain it to you in the most simple way that I know possible, because Einstein always says, if you can't explain something simply, then you don't understand it. And that is that you can't have more than one thought in your head at a time, right? You can't be thinking more than one thing. And so if you're starting to focus on seeing the positives and you're starting in your meditations to think about gratitude, about setting your intention, not just being positive, about really like digging deep and finding what's going to work best for you in the world, then you're starting to train your brain and yourself to see the positives, to appreciate things, whether it's a big thing or a little thing. And so that becomes the medicine behind it and the science, because they've really found that by focusing yourself on the gratitude, that the negativity starts to dwindle away. And even though it might still be present, you're actually going to start to notice yourself doing it more. So when you complain, you're going to feel yourself complaining, and you can actually feel it in your body. You can feel that negativity tighten up your chest. And then you start to think, oh, I don't want to feel like that, right? And you might start to add a caveat, like maybe you're complaining about something, but you say, oh, but I really appreciated this. And so you start to include it in your life. So just keep in mind that you can only think one thought at a time. What do you want that thought to be?
Right, right. Those are all great, great insights. So we always encourage everyone to come away with, two to three takeaways. And so here's some that I wrote, just so hopefully anybody on the Zoom today can hear. But breathing was one, right? The importance of breathing, right? You're stacking your habits. Love that. I know it's from Atomic Habits, but you talked about, brushing your teeth and, focusing on something else, whether it's that 1 to 10 minutes, right? On meditation.
Yeah.
And
Anything.
Yeah. Yes. And then I had also put, make sure that you take time for yourself and do meditation, right? In your, whatever that means to you, right? Take that time for yourself. Right? Anything else you would love to add? Yes. Anything else I missed that might be important? I was trying to write down. I was writing while you were talking, taking my own notes.
So there was a quote that Deepak Chopra said during our a health coach certification conference last year. And he said, if someone tells you they don't have time to meditate for 15 minutes, then they should be meditating for an hour. And really, the point of the comment was that, the person who's telling you that they're too busy to do this is really the person who needs it the most. And so I think of this as something that, again, you can really start small, start with 1 minute, just take that time. Maybe 1 minute's a challenge. That 1 minute could be a challenge in and of itself. But take 1 minute and start to see what areas of the primary food in your life that you want to focus on. And you don't have to focus on all of them all at once or all the time, but start small and start today.
Yes. Well, Marli, we appreciate you being on with us today. This has been great. I think everybody has picked up one or two tips, and I'm seeing some comments saying it was great insight, and we appreciate it. Appreciate you being on today. I do want to ask for the people in the chat, if you wouldn't mind commenting. We want to really, on our next event, do something if we can in person, because for the last couple of years, it's been Zoom. It's hard to get everybody in. Life is busy, right? But if you would be interested in an after hours event, please put a comment in the chat, because we would love to get together with everybody and have in person, see you. Maybe we can practice some of these techniques that Marli has shared with us today. But we would love for you to just take a minute and do that before we sign off. And if there are any other questions, please put them in the chat before Marli signs off.
And thank you so much for having me, but more so, thank you for making this such a priority for this organization and for the women in our company, because I'm so grateful to work at a company that prioritizes our health and our wellness and that knows the value, because this is going to directly impact the success of our business. Because the more that we can take care of ourselves, get the rest, focus on our primary food, our secondary food, the more that we will succeed in business, have better relationships with each other, and just overall have a more positive experience. So thank you so much again. This is so important, and I'm really grateful I got to be part of it.
Yes, we are so thankful for you as well. So we appreciate everybody joining us today. We got a question?
Yes, someone wants to know how to find Marli on social media.
Marli, how do we find you on social media?
On Facebook, it's my name, Marli Kol, MARLIKOL. And on Instagram, it's Marli_on the move.
Marli.
It's a little bit of a play on real estate. You move in real estate, but also I'm a dancer, gymnast, athlete, all the above. So I'm always on the move.
That's
and
awesome.
Traveling.
Yes, that's awesome. Thank you. Do we have any more? Or are we good?
Thank you.
We are good. Yes. Thank you so much, Marli. And we are going to sign off today. We appreciate everybody being with us, and then look for something in person to come up in the next couple of months.